Hey, hello. Took quite a bit of tries actually, but I did manage to get Underpin question mark down with my Resto Shaman, and it was quite a challenge. So I thought I'd share the video of the kill, as well as how I set up for it, because it was actually not an easy fight at all. So let me start. We'll just kind of show how I equipped. So my gear level is 668, so it's pretty decent. All my gear is crit verse because I don't play elemental really. So we got a lot of crit verse gear. I did put some gems in here. Looks like I got Thunderlords, Fathom Dwellers, and Squall Sailor. Try to get a little more DPS because if you play Resto Shaman, you know we don't really do much DPS anymore. I did use Turbo Drain and Giga Zap Cap because though they're not real impressive trinkets, they're the best I had. And the other thing I had on was the Voltaic Storm Collar that nobody uses, but it does have the proc there for the Storm Rook, which did some damage during the fight. Talent-wise, I always play Totemic for Mythic Plus or Raid. Don't really play Farseer that much, but for this and, for instance, Zekvir, I would set up with a Farseer build because there are periods where you need some burst DPS, which Totemic Resto Shamans really don't have. But using Ascendance, you can get some nice burst DPS on call by using Swiftness. So that's what I did. I'll link this build up in the description at the end of the video. But mostly we're just looking at everything kind of got tailored in on this talent spec for this fight. So I didn't use it in this fight, but you can actually stun those mobs. Though I was trying something a little different here that I'll talk about. And then, of course, you can whittle out your chain heal type talents and stuff. Because you're only going to be using Riptides, maybe a Healing Surge, and, of course, your Healing Stream Totems. But the idea is pick whatever you can to get a little more DPS, and then whatever you can to move faster and survive a little better. Alright. Well, that out of the way, let's take a look at the kill itself. Now I'm going to try to just let it play through without too much interruption, or maybe I'll make a comment at certain points. But for instance, the way I set up Brann here was as damage because he didn't seem to stay alive very well as a tank. As a DPS, he did stay alive pretty well. Mechasaurs can be pretty big DPS if eggs are hatching, and they don't always. I've seen some. I had a lot of pulls on this, and I've seen some good pulls where he was up at 1.5, 1.6 million DPS, and other ones where he's at 5 or 6, and it all had to do with how many eggs it spawned. But what I ended up doing, because I tried pretty much all the utility curios, and Loot Radar is a good option. It does periodically pulses out, and you get an extra damage on all the mobs around you. But I went with Biofuel Rocket Gear. So what I noticed was, and it didn't happen so much on this kill, but every time you kill one of those cronies, you're getting a stack of the haste and the movement speed. And if you're able to space them out and they're placed right along with the bombs, and you can kill another one just before that buff expires, you can keep that buff rolling. So some of the pulls, I was able to keep that rolling almost the whole fight. That did not happen on this fight, but that is why I was going with Biofuel Rocket Fuel. Alright, let's go ahead and play through the kill and take a look. I did put up food consumables, and I went with versatility flask. The way I use the ascendance here is I'm using Frost Shock, which I talented into. As long as you got an ascendant up, if you hit Frost Shock, it doesn't do a lot of damage, right? But your ascendants are going to launch out Lava Bursts, which can do pretty decent damage. So just keep Flame Shock up on your target and use Frost Shock. and get fairly good damage. You can see this fight with all the movement and trying to knock the bombs into the cronies and dodge stuff. You don't really have time to stop and cast very much. So I would say during this fight, just about every global is in use. We got our first shield, and I did pop swiftness so I could get extra ascendant. And that shield wasn't really too big a deal to get down. You can see right in the center of my screen I do have a weak aura I set up to track biofuel buffs and then how many stacks I got, and it did drop off during the shield and this particular pull. So if that happens, then you gotta stack it back up.
Wow! Blast you for what you've done! Get in here! I ain't paying for you to stand around! I'm gonna get you to the counting pen! 1, 2, and I roll with an iron fist! I'll make you rain, you'll feel the pain. I roll with an iron fist. It's not ain't that a ticket? I knew this. I'm out! I'm out!
It's pretty easy to get hit by a bunch of stuff at once in this fight, so always have your ready for defensives.
My mech is private property. I'll blast you for what you've done. Say hello to all my friends. I'm gonna get you to the counting pen. 1, 2, and forecast cloudy with a kick. I roll with an iron fist. I'm gonna get you to the counting pen. 1, 2, and I roll with an iron fist. That's cool, all right.
If you see my little ascendants, yeah, they're just throwing out those lava bursts. And like I said, that was enough to get through the shields, all right.
I'm gonna get you to the counting pen. All meals upon get in here. I ain't paying for you to stand around. I roll with an iron fist. I'm gonna get you to the counting pen. 1, 2, and I'll make you rain. You'll feel the pain. I roll with an iron fist. I'm out. I'm out. My mech is private property. I'm gonna give you to the counting pen. 1, 2, and I'll blast you for what you've done. Get in here. I ain't paying for you to stand around. I'll make you rain.
Actually, at this point in the fight, I actually got 13 stacks of that hasty movement speed buff on, which is pretty good.
To the counting pen. 1, 2, and I roll with an iron fist. open moat. I rule with an iron fist. All kneel before the unforecast, cloudy with a chance of boom. I'm out! I'm out! All kneel before the underpin. My mess is private property. I'm gonna give you till the count of 10. 1, 2, 10. I rule with an iron fist. Say hello to all my friends. I'll make you rain. You'll feel the tick-tock into open moat.
Hey, there we go. You can see at the end, on all three times I killed it with different classes, the end is always going to look like that. Nothing but a lot of dodging. So, is you can't, sooner or later, you start splitting the ads start spawning in different sides of the arena. So there's no way you can really kill them all without losing the time on the boss and the shields. Especially because he can jump to Brann. So if Brann's somewhere off, away from ads, and you're working on ads, and then the Underpin jumps to him and then decides to go to shield, you're going to be in trouble there. So you keep the ads under control as much as you can, and then once they start to get out of control a little bit, and it's usually around 40% or so and beyond on the boss, just kind of assume that you're going to be dodging a lot of stuff. I mean, you can try to, as you could see as I was going along, I try to throw bombs at him when I could to get him down, but there's no way you're going to be able to get them all down, so don't bother trying. You see the little mechasaurs there. They do a pretty good amount of damage. Let's see what the meters look like. So near the end of that fight, Brann was at about 1,000,000, which is actually a little low, which means he must not have had a lot of eggs, because I've seen him higher. My DPS was 834, which is pretty poor for a DPS, but pretty good for a Resto Shaman, right? So that is how I set up for this fight, and how I did it was, yeah, use the Ascendants to get the extra DPS for the shield break. I don't think you can do it as Totemic. We just don't have the DPS for that. And even if you try to put different stats on your gear, if you do play Elemental or something, I don't think it's going to help, because Resto's not set up to take advantage of the mastery and stuff, right? So use whatever you can that gives you a little extra DPS, which included some of the gems for the citrine, the circlet. So the ones that do DPS, even though they don't do a lot of DPS, it all does add up. And certainly if you save your swiftness for the shields, and you're using Unleashed Life on cooldown, so you should have an Ancestor up the entire fight and just keep putting DPS in the boss as you can. But use that swiftness on the shields, and you should be able to get those down. So that's how I worked through this fight. It wasn't an easy one. It took me most of a day before I finally got a kill on it. So if you're working on as Resto Shaman, just be aware it's going to take a little while, especially as you figure out how to work the movement and dodge stuff. But I'm pretty happy I got it down. So I think if I were going to do anything differently next time, no, that's about the best. Maybe I would try to game the biofuel rocket gear a little more carefully. Make sure I leave a crony up if possible, so that I can reset that buff before it expires and keep it rolling. I think you get up to 30 stacks on that. And I know when I was up at 13, 14, 15 stacks, I could feel the movement difference. As you can see, all throughout this fight, there's so much stuff to dodge. It really helps to have some movement speed going there. Once again, I don't think I cast a single cast spell. It was all instants, and pretty much every global cooldown I was doing something. So, but the haste helped with that too, so I could actually get more done because of global cooldown just a little bit smaller. But Hey, if you watched all the way here to the end, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I'll catch you guys on the next one.